No one knew Ryan White better than you, his mom. Jeannie, as we approach World AIDS Day, what do you think Ryan would think today about his legacy and then how far we've come over these past several decades?
Well, I mean, he would be just overjoyed. But, he always said this was when he was fighting. He had lived probably about a year. And that he always said, Mom, if I could live 5 years, he said, they'll have a cure. He said, I know they will. They're working so hard on it. And of course, he lived 5.5 years. We didn't even have the meds. I think he thought that they were working on it so good. And then once they did, we had such great results, but it just took too many lives lost than we should have. I mean, we should have been a lot further along, I think. But just to think that people can live today, and it doesn't replace Ryan, but his legacy, I mean, had a purpose through the Ryan White Care Act. And I just, I'm very proud of that. I wish he had been there for him, but at the same time, just seeing people living today and some of the people that I knew back then, I mean, most of them passed away, I mean, that I worked with, but just to see people now living and those few that were able to make it till we got the meds and to see them living long, productive lives is just so unbelievable and so rewarding. Like that there was a purpose.
He said something along the lines of, if I can go through this so somebody else doesn't have to, then
Yeah,
I'm willing to do that. And I thought, wow, that is so prolific from a teenager.
I know. I know. There was an inner peace with Ryan. When he was diagnosed, he said, how long do I have? Dr. Kleiman saying 3 to 6 months if they can get you over this. And he says, let's pretend I don't. I said, well, we can't do that, Ryan, because we have to take all these precautions. He said, no, Mom. He said, I don't want to die either, but when the Lord wants me, he's going to take me. But I mean, he was, you know, he said the Lord came and spoke to him in the hospital and told him he had nothing to fear. And so there was, from the time he was diagnosed, there was an inner peace with him. Now, I think he thought he was going to live.
Yeah, I watched an interview with you, Jeannie, where you said somebody had mentioned to you in Congress that they were going to name something after Ryan in a bill, and you thought at the time, well, that's really nice.
Well, I, I mean, Senator Kennedy called me at the hospital, and Elton was filtering all the phone calls. This is during the last week and a half of Ryan's life, and Elton said, this is a phone call. He said, I think you should take. And I got on the phone, and it was Senator Kennedy, because all the media was trying to talk to me and everything. And so I took the call, and Senator Kennedy told me, he said, we're having these hearings here in D.C. on a CARE Act. And he said, with your permission, he said, we'd like to name it the Ryan White CARE Act. And that nobody has brought so much attention to this disease, and we have people caring about AIDS now because of Ryan. He said he's on the nightly news and everybody is praying for Ryan. And he said, we'd really like, while we're having these hearings, we'd like to name it the Ryan White Care Act. And I said, well, that would be nice. Not ever realizing how enormous that bill would be, but I was worried about my son. That wasn't my top priority, even though it became my top priority.
When you think about Indiana, what do you think now?
It's still home. It's still home. I mean, I get it. I'm fortunate because of the Indianapolis Children's Museum. They have on display Ryan's room, and I get to go back there 4 times a year, thanks to Elton, because of the grant the Elton John AIDS Foundation gives the Children's Museum. And so I get to go up and visit, and I think it's a little bit. My daughter's down here in Florida. I think that makes me, not want to leave Florida and go back to Indiana. I would be in Cicero.
Yeah.
I love there. And not just, I mean, they have continued to be supportive of me, and, they still care and love Ryan. But I'm an Indiana girl, an IU girl. On the 6th, I'm going to IU.
Oh, good.
IU, yeah, Ryan always wanted to go to IU, and Bobby Knight had promised him a scholarship. He said, "I'll put you somewhere." And I mean, and it was Ryan was always kind of, the people that were criticized. Ryan seemed to he understood that.
Do you feel, Jeannie, there has been a shift in public opinion?
Well, I think they did, and now it concerns me that it's not a priority anymore. We have so many issues. Face it. I mean, I think there's a lot of homophobia now, and I think that that's brought on so much discrimination within everything, not just AIDS, the race issues.
Do you think that there's hope to end AIDS and cure it by 2030?
Well, oh gosh, surprised we don't have one already, or if we don't have one already. But there's so much money in it. I just think that if they wanted to find a cure, they could. I think the pressure now is being put on so many that people are getting aware of. I'm so happy that we can prolong people's lives. Don't get me wrong. I'm so thrilled. But I just wish we could come together as a nation where money isn't everything. Well, the politics, who knows what's going to happen.
You said you're coming to IU?
Yes, the 5th, 6th, and 7th. The 6th, they have a Ryan White Awards at IU. Bill Yarber is the head of the Rural AIDS. We give out awards. We've given it to Surgeon General Coop. We've given it to several. Greg Louganis has gotten it. IU does. They have a rural AIDS program and rural, like
yes,
rural areas. And they have birthday cake. They always have it on Ryan's birthday, and they have a great big birthday cake for him. Yeah, I think there's 150 people signed up.
Let me ask you one more question, and I appreciate your time. I just don't want to abuse my privilege here, but
that's fine. I got my work done.
Oh,
so.
Good. As we get ready to honor World AIDS Day, let me just bring it back around, Jeannie. What can we do to celebrate World AIDS Day?
I think by letting people know that it's not over. Yes, we have the meds, and we're so fortunate that we have the meds. It's very concerning that we're still getting so many new cases of AIDS. I mean, I know we have the meds. We have all these new cases, and it doesn't seem like we've come so far back in education as far as who we're allowed to talk to and what we're allowed to say. If we can talk about STDs and teen pregnancy, alcohol abuse, why can't we talk about the AIDS epidemic and how you get AIDS and how you don't? I think that it needs to be part of a curriculum. I think it's so important that we don't lose sight of the newly infected people and how we have a way of educating them to teach them how you get AIDS and how you don't. And like Ryan says, once you have sex with somebody, you have sex with everybody else they've had sex with. But I mean, it needs to be just part of an educational program where we can talk about AIDS and not hee-haw and we laugh and get it over with. And now let's make it serious. It concerns me that we're going kind of backwards as far as, because we have the meds too. A lot of people are very like, oh, well, if I get it, I'll just take the meds. Well, the meds are great and they may help people live, but we have to do something about controlling the disease and eliminating the disease. We have to stop the spread of AIDS and make people be responsible for themselves.
I think it's also important that we remember people, pioneers like Ryan, and doctors and researchers and AIDS victims, that when there wasn't anything there and no one wanted to hug them or touch anything they've touched, I think it's important that we remember that and them.
Well, that's, to me, now that we have the meds, that is so important that we remember all the people who got us to where we are today, because they are no longer here. And I'm not just talking about Ryan, because Ryan was a face, but there are so many people that did all the work. There are all the people. I just fell in love with a guy named Terry Byrne, a gay man from Manfar he just told me, anytime you have a question or concern, you call me. He said, we're finding out here in New York far sooner than anywhere else what works and what doesn't work. He said, anytime you have a question or concern, we were all in this together. And it wasn't like a gay person has it, a straight person has it, a blood transfusion person has it. To me, when I worked with MFAR, I mean, it was for everybody. Once you have AIDS, you're just like everybody else who has AIDS. You're fighting to stay alive. And people fought to stay alive, and people dedicated their lives to get us to where we are today. And so many people, it's just like they take it for granted. We're not dying. Well, yeah, but what if you were part of that crew that first got AIDS? To me, a day of remembrance is so much, since we are living. I mean, and education. I think education is important for World AIDS Day. I think remembering the ones that we lost but loved.